Welcome to Virtual Wednesdays at the Young Museum. My name is Natasha Becker, and I recently joined the museum as the curator of African art. Thank you for joining us during Black History Month. Tonight, we are excited to screen When We Gather, a 5-minute film that celebrates women who play an important leadership role in the United States. Following the film, I will be joined by two very special guests. María Magdalena Campos-Pons is one of the amazing artists who conceived of this project, and Wendi Norris is a longtime San Francisco gallerist who co-produced it. Stay tuned after the screening to learn more about the making of the film and join us as we discuss themes of healing, creativity, and unity. For now, I will pass the camera to Wendi Norris, who will give a quick introduction to the film. Wendi, take it away.
Thank you, Natasha. The film you're about to see was inspired by a dream. This dream was given to María Magdalena Campos-Pons on the historic election of the country's first female vice president. In Magda's original version, there's a group of women, all dressed in white, representing different ages, races, and sizes, dancing in a counterclockwise direction around the White House. This dream stems in part from a Yoruban tradition where women gather in a home to cleanse and heal to create a path for a better tomorrow. Magda invited choreographer and dancer Okwui Okpokwasili and her longtime collaborator, soundscape artist and poet LaTasha N. Diggs to realize this dream with her. We realized in the midst of a pandemic that we couldn't dance around the White House, so we decided to make a film. I hired director Codie Elaine Oliver, and Magda and the lead creative artists invited 4 other performers to join us. And along with an amazing and great creative team, we filmed and produced When We Gather over a span of 6 weeks during a pandemic. Enjoy.
Every time I see this film, I get goosebumps. Thank you, Magda and Wendi, for this beautiful and inspiring work. And thank you to everyone for being with us tonight. Wendi mentioned in her introduction that the performance emerged out of a dream that Magda had. So my first question is, can you tell us more about how this idea for this project came to you in a dream, and what happened in the process of creating, turning your dream into an artwork? Can you speak a little bit to us about the origins of the work? And then maybe Wendi could, as the executive producer of the film, which I really see as another, manifestation of the performance, maybe you could speak a little bit to us about, what and who was involved in making it all happen, in translating the performance into this film that we just saw. But let's start with the dream, Magda.
Thank you so much for having me. And I am so happy to be here with you all. And also I want to thank your staff and your team at the Young Museum behind this program tonight, and all the people that join us tonight in the audience. I was thinking when I hear your question that sometimes to transform dreams from the materiality of dreams to the materiality of art making sometimes takes such a long time. And sometimes the dream don't even get transformed into one imagined. But in this case, I suppose that because the peculiarity of the time that we found ourselves in the middle of this project, it was something quite magical about the intensity and the immediacy that everybody found around engaging and becoming part of this project. As you say, yes, I dreamed this piece. And I described to people, and I described to Wendi in the first moment when I reached her for this. I don't think that I ever made a piece. It was a piece that was gifted to me in some way. It was some kind of a regalo, we say in Spanish for gift, that was put in my hand to make it happen. And I dream, and that morning I wake up, jump out of my bed like crazy about all that I have seen, and I need to call LaTasha Diggs, and I need to call Okwui. And I took the phone and called these ladies. Both of them answered, and both of them, after I was ramping and half Spanish and English and all of the scene that I was trying to convey to them about how emotional I was with what I saw in this dream, they both say, we are in. And that was beautiful. It was almost like this love at first sight and trust at first sight that come into this. And so I talked with LaTasha Diggs and Okwui Okpokwasili in the morning. And by the afternoon, early evening, I was calling Wendi. Say, Wendi, you need to help me with this. I have this dream and I have this artist, and they say yes, because I saw them. And I suppose that I have been so charged with preoccupations and ideas that are back in the making of my work about women gathering, about the convening of women, the power of what women could do together, that this dream manifests in some way as a result of my anxiety and my desires in some way. I dreamed the piece very different than how it ended in the film. This was a massive performance around the White House in Washington, D.C. And I told my co-creators, I was seeing everything from a bare view. So there are few images that came into the work that were very important, because my vision of the performance itself come from this kind of cinematographic view and of a from above. So I don't know, so there are so many things that are intriguing and exciting about this. And it was really not the work of only the 7 women that responded to me or that were introduced to me in the process, but it was the entire team, which is a very vast group of people that came together and engaged in this idea. I was very worried, concerned. I have been working in so many areas of ideas that are pertinent to the difficulties and the aspiration of our times. And to see the fact that finally a woman rise all to the vice presidential ranks of the country, I was full of joy in so many ways. And I think that was how this work came in a way, celebrating that Kamala was inaugurated presented as a moment as vice president. And also, I believe that was just in some way the putting together so many dreams of so many people for so long time. So I keep saying about the piece, I feel myself as a conduit from one energy to another energy, that I was put in the middle to pass this information and to make sure that this little homage, that's the little gathering of feelings, emotions, ideas, and desires and power from very ancestral time to the present moment took place. And I feel that very deeply. There was an ancestral gift put it into place for something that couldn't wait any longer to be made. So Wendi, I let you there, you jump in and say the rest.
Thank you, Magda. One little housekeeping note before I jump in too far is that some people might be joining us right now, and if you missed the little screening, the live screening of the film, it is going to be up on the De Young's website, and I think we are going to be able to have future screenings all across the United States. And if you go to whenwegather.art, you'll be able to see our live screenings and more places where this film could be hopefully viewed in person at some point in 2021. But the De Young will have it up on their YouTube channel for at least the next 24 hours. So I hope you can watch it again or watch it for the first time. But Yeah, I mean, like Natasha said, and as Magda alluded to, I mean, this was a Herculean effort for sure. I mean, as you can see by the number of people on the credit lines, I do think there was a moment, I remember when Magda called me that morning, I was glued to my television, and I think there was a moment where, you know, it was an obvious, like there was a need, the idea of unity and healing. Magda was talking about that before the politicos co-opted those messages. So there was something in the air that she was tapping into, I think, pretty early on. And, you know, for me, I've never produced a film before, but if you look at the women that are on our website and the bios of these women, like, you know, we've got the MacArthur Genius Award winners and the incredibly, you know, the filmmaker who has this incredible list of films that she's made, and, you know, Obama's, the State Department advisor. We just had such an amazing, to be frank, at some points, very overqualified group of women. And we were all so like equally charged in the moment, in line with Magda's vision. And like she said, I mean, we represented every time zone from Hawaii to New York, across the United States. Most of us have never ever met each other in person before. Only one of our major producers, Gabby Matson, she was the person that went to all 7 locations to meet each of the 7 artists with our COVID crew that had to oversee every little detail in the filming of this. So there were so many challenges, but we made something that we're really happy for. We had to work at such a lightning pace because originally we had planned to broadcast a version of this film on the inauguration. That was the original plan. And then January 6th happened. So that was a completely different turn in the history of the making of this film. And so we ended up making more of what we wanted to have as an artist version of the film, what we showed you tonight for the very first time. So yeah, there were lots of twists and turns. I mean, the team was incredibly resilient. And I think there were lots of moments of magic and laughs and maybe a tear or two, but it was pretty electrifying along the way. So thank you.
That's incredible. And at the heart of this film is a performance. And so there's a performance, there's this ritual element, there's the ceremonial element, there's this gathering. And so I was wondering if you could speak to the symbolism, you know, in the film, and the significance of that. There were 7 women, the choreography and the gestures. There's also this, you know, this beautiful voice that narrates this poem for us. And, you know, the costume, the individual costuming of each of the women, and towards the end, this blue knots of cloth that each of the women hold at various times. So there's just so many aspects of the performance itself that I just wanted to hone in on a little bit more, because that is really what is at the heart, is this performative intervention that the film captures.
Well, let me say that there was an idea that is fundamental in the piece, and that is circularity. The idea of a sphere, the idea of this line that is a circle itself, it was very important. It was very important in the project, the idea of the cardinal points. So I refer, when I was talking with the artist, about a clock. And we used the reference of the clock as a direction for movement. We were all moving counterclockwise all the time. So we were going northwest, southeast, northwest, southeast all the time. And that was important for this idea of directions and geography, and how we were thinking about ancestral energy, and especially in Yoruba tradition, with moving counterclockwise, is going back to the ancestor and in conversation with ancestral forces. But also I remember I having a conversation with LaTasha Nevada Diggs, and Diggs say, Magda, not only the 4 directions, remember center, above and below, below and above. And I say, right, of course. And we immediately connected this with the idea of 7. And I say, all my work, the 7 is a number that is there always. The 7 power that came from by the sea, 7 pictured in Sacred Family. I mean, it's again and again in the piece, Spoken Softly with Mama, and it's 7 boards, and it's over and over and over. So 7 was an important number. It's an important number in Yoruba tradition. It represents Yemaya, the mother figure of the Yoruba pantheon. All of these things were in my mind. I was thinking in Kamala Harris, and I was thinking, she's blue. For one reason, I saw 2 colors, but I saw those colors in this dream. We see in those ribbons passing blue and saffron. I was saying it's sort of yellow, but I saw they were so many. Blue is a color of healing. Mm-hmm. Blue is a color that had been present in so many pieces. And I was back myself when I needed to shift in the piece from performance in the ground to performativity for the camera, to really to adjust some of this idea. And the knots were very important, because making knots was like making prayers. You know, mm-hmm. So in the film is, and LaTasha Diggs, Nevada Diggs, get that beautiful in the poem when she talk about, you know, making knots, and every time that you make a knot, you make a wish, you project a potentiality for something. So Okwui Okpokwasili brilliantly understood the idea of the clock, and she saying to the clock, and she say, Magda, this movement need to come a movement like a storm, like in a spiral that go in centrifugal force and a spin to get momentum. And I could tell you that in the end, she never was too happy about how we didn't spiral down in such a dimension, because and that does energy, because it was implying not only ancestral energy, but was implying cleansing. You know, the entire idea of the performance is a cleaning ceremony. It's like cleansing everything that was difficult, but a cleansing ceremony is a spiritual gifting. Is not saying neither or. It's about renew the space, renew the environment, introduce now this potentiality of fresh something. And all of that were there. So the blue knot was there, the spire as a storming to the left, counterclockwise, storming to that direction to eliminate impurities, to bring new energy and create a storm. That was very important. The storm is, you know, the storm comes and take a lot of things, but let again a fresh start. That was important. It was beautiful how Okwi structured for every one of us how to work with movement. I remember talking to her and say, I cannot move. On my performance, I am standing still for the longest that I can. And the destroyer say, I walk into Piazza San Marco, I walk into Guggenheim, but I walk. I don't do much else than just walk in processional way. And she say, no, you could move, and you move well, Magda. And in some way, she create those exercises for every one of us, for Samita, for Jana, for Lisa, for Dale, like all of us learning to move. And we did numerous rehearsals, preparing ourselves to get into the energy, to get into the coded material that was in there, the same with the understanding the rhythm and the sound of the performance. LaTasha Diggs I met in 1992 or 93, and I listened to her deliver a poem, and I was in love with her. I remember that in that gathering was a woman that is always in my mind and had been in my mind. Jane Cortez was there, and I adored La Diga, and she had been in many other performances, and I fall in love equally with Okwi as we start working in a project that I invited her at Vanderbilt. Del Hamilton, I know from years and years and years, and have worked in many of my performances. Jana Harper is a colleague from this Vanderbilt, who I invited to a previous project in Matanzas during the Biennale that I curated there. And then Lisa and Samita were introduced to me. Lisa by LaTasha Diggs and Samita by Okwui. So what this project brought to were all these new friendships and new connections, and we were all in different time zones and different cities. We never went together, neither one of us, to make this performance. So this the notes in blue, we are talking, and I am telling Codie, this is what I want. I wanted to mash, and I wanted to do, but we were almost imagined through Zoom, and we did rehearsal in Zoom. We would go all together in a Zoom screen and start making scenes with our hands and our body to illustrate how do we imagine that we could do this in the final film. So it was really a compelling, difficult, I would say, strenuous. This woman worked with hours that I cannot tell you, and I am very grateful for them and for the energy that every one of the artists put in this piece, and they own a space of creativity. Everyone was left with their own opportunity to interpret it and to build an energy and understanding about when we gather, and the idea of passing energy from women to women. I see.
It's extraordinary, because given what you describe in terms of how it was made, it's extraordinary that in the film it feels circular and it feels really whole and it feels very connected. It looks that way too, of course, but there's also, as you said, there's this emotional quality to the performance and the work, and it really comes together so beautifully. And from what I also know about your work, performance is often the root also of the artistic interventions that you make, and is often the root of what might become photographic installation, what might become a sculpture, what might become an installation. And that performance is, as you say, it's often in a space, in a geography, in a time, but also it usually involves lots of people too, that, the work comes out of the performance and the participants. So yeah, I was thinking, because of this moment that you wanted to, this present moment of the election of Kamala Harris to the vice presidency, that in this present moment, that this was also you were also wanting to intervene within that moment as well. So performance and your interventions are usually about strengthening a community and strengthening support for a community. Work you've done in Havana in the United States also tries to shed light and to bring that sort of attention. And so with when we gather, what are you and Wendi, I think this also speaks to your interest in this project as well. What are you calling women to do? What are you calling women to gather? What is the significance of that call to gather and that call to, to support and to community?
Well, Magda, I mean, from my perspective, and Magda's going to, I think, have her own on this, but the idea that as women, when we come together, there is this a natural healing and a nurturing. And one of the things that, as you mentioned with Magda's work historically and the way she approaches such collaborations, it's just, they're filled with love and trust. And so when you come together in working at, this type of speed, I do think it's like asking women to like we need to come together. We're celebrating. That's the first of all, we want to celebrate this moment, right? And honor everyone that came before us, because there were moments where we did writing and we would whisper names of our ancestors or women who came before us. We all contributed. The production and the creative teams contributed names of women that were important to us ancestrally. And we would do things like that in the making of this, just because we needed to honor what we were doing. And I think, you know, what we want to do, and if you go to like the website on whenwegather.art, there's a participate button, and the artists have each made their 3 different actions, and we want people to go there and film their own action. And the reason why we did that, because we wanted to gather, like I said in the introduction, in person. Absent that, we're sort of tapping into this virtual community. And in order to create a path forward and celebrate and bring in new generations, you know, this is where we're meeting the younger generation, where young girls go in there and film themselves is saying the name of an ancestor and thinking on that, or doing something in their virtual classroom with their hands to connect. And so we're trying to say, okay, ultimately we will gather. When we gather, we can do this performance maybe around wherever, right? But in the meantime, we can still gather spiritually, collectively, virtually in this current situation we're facing. And I think that anticipation of hope, you know, what we're asking people to do is to participate virtually, to feel connected, to celebrate. You know, it's been 100 years, and one of the things I think Codie does so brilliantly, and I think that's what you speak to, Natasha, is how it feels like a whole film, because she's weaving it together. You've got the brilliant cadence of LaTasha's poem, and as she's reciting that, and the soundscape, and then you have a similar lens and the filter of the palette that the director is weaving together, and that sense of history, and then ending, you know, with Okwui and her daughter at the end, and that's where we're sort of saying, okay, come together.
Generational, also.
Yeah,
opening the space for that generational shift too.
So I want to jump in there and to set and to speak briefly about both the beauty, the reckoning of trying, and the implication of aspire. In gathering, and this idea of coming together, as I say in the beginning, this is not a piece that I sit down with pen and paper and start picking my brain to produce it. This is a piece that I was sleeping in the realm of you, and it came to me. It's not the first piece in my life that come that way, but this one was, and I felt it as a spiritual calling. I was going to do that piece one way or another. For that, I mean, I felt so a necessity and immediacy about the importance of that particular work and that particular message that is coming into my work. I remember speaking with somebody that I adore and respect a lot. And I say, I feel that I have a message to deliver. And this person saying to me, oh, well, you know, this is very important. When you have a message to deliver, you need to do it. There are other people that decide that they are not delivering message. This is important. And the message that I have to deliver, among other things, was women in the imperfection of their togetherness, in the imperfection of their proximity, still, is they put in it their heart, their strength, and the purity of their soul, whatever that means, something could manifest that is larger, stronger than any one of them individually. That was very important for me. That message is there. The piece is not perfect, it's imperfect. The piece is not finished, it's unfinished. The piece doesn't have everything that we wanted to put in there, have what we could. The piece brought us frustration in seeing that we wanted to happen but didn't happen, but it brings us pride and finish it, something that have touched the heart of many. So the purpose of passing me as a vehicle for that dream is completed in the fact that I gathered the courage and the consistency that with my capacity of what I could and the people that trusted for B, C, D, H, we came together and we launched in the world a message that have given hope and desire and a way to look at it now and reconsider too many. Full of imperfection, full of tears behind the scene, full of moment of dissatisfaction behind the scene, because that is the truth. When women get together and trying to really overcome sins and propose something larger than themselves, is going to be full of obstacles. That is the path that Kamala Harris took to came to be what she is now. That is the path that my mother took to be what she could do in the limitation and circumstances that she was. And this, the truth for many women that in my journey has been there helping me to come to have this conversation with you today. So the message that I wanted to bring, the asking that was in this piece when we gathered is, no matter what your frustration is, no matter how many times you cut down in what you think that you should be doing or you could do, whatever that you try to do, and to the extent that you complete that, you are paving the way for something better for yourself and other women. And in this relation with women, and in this conversation, we Black women too, because at some moment I was, there is many sacrifices that we do, but they are already paying us. We are seeing results. And it's not out of frustration, but we are seeing the result. So the invitation is, let's gather, let's make a circle in our table, in our bed, in our kitchen, in our schoolyard, in the office, before you go into the surgical room, and before you are launching letting the robot landing in Mars. All that time, there is a woman behind that woman. When Perseverance is landing and this beautiful engineer is saying 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 1 minute, 2 minutes, and I was breathing with her and almost crying, there is a bunch of women that build this woman up to this moment. The same from Kamala. So when I am thinking, if we start, the invitation is, let's think collectively. Let's think in togetherness. Let's think that what I gain and what I lost is the gain for a collective, is larger than my little corner. That is there.
There's something that you also said when we were chatting earlier this week that I also thought was really powerful, is that in this very simple way, the gathering also becomes a way to, send positive energy to a woman who, we're celebrating as being the first a woman and woman of color vice president, but that job that lies ahead of her will require, so much strength and so much, support and such a large community, that the gathering and the ritual can also become a space where we offer that support energetically, beyond the ballot box or, beyond what one might do individually, but that this idea of the gathering as a practice that harnesses a kind of loving energy that we can send out. It reminds me of the Buddhist practice of Tonglen, where you can breathe in and out and still create change in oneself and in the world. And it brings me to, you've always been drawn to performance and to ritual as a way to also access what is, the gifts of cultures. And the 7 women we see are so diverse and so multidimensional, and are bringing all this different cultural heritage into their performances. I think that complexity and that multidimensionality is all woven together, to create this really rich tapestry. But this very simple idea that we're all behind screens, we've all been socially distant, we've all been, struggling with the pandemic, but here is a way we can also support each other and, you know, support somebody who is clearly going to need a lot of our support in the next 4 years. So I also love that aspect of it. And maybe I'll just sort of end on the question of, you know, why you are drawn to performance and to, you know, really mining the our cultural heritage and histories and practices for vehicles or as vehicles that can do political work, can do socially transformative work.
Well, I want to let Wendi say something before I finish, because I think that she needs to add something there. And I want to publicly thank Wendi for her steadfast in really producing this piece and fighting, as I say, and really be an example of when women support women and when women are there to help lead the way. I want to say that. And I don't know if you want to add something before I talk about the question that Natasha asked me.
Oh, I love Natasha's question. I would love to hear your answer to it, actually.
Well,
if you want me to buy you some time, I can talk and buy you some time.
I mean, it's a very important question, and it's a very complex question. As I want to say that I want to use this opportunity, since this is the first screening of the artist version of the piece, and we have in this piece the voice of LaTasha Diggs, who created this poem, which is very important to me, and an expansive presence of the artist. I want to thank the Dijon Museum for being the pioneer in doing this and hosting us. Not only myself, but the other 6 women that are here through this piece, and to say again that the piece is not finished, that there are many aspects that are in progress and that I am thinking, and also that the idea is to really create a continuum of the piece that is not only local but global. And Natasha, you are invited to have a good role in that international taking of that piece.
Oh, I already have visions of a gathering in Golden Gate Park, so we can synchronize our anti-clockwise movements.
It's very beautiful. How many women are writing to me when seeing this and asking how they could participate and all of this. But performativity, and in my questions and my present concerns and inquiries about what is art and what is my role and what I could do in this world, and I have a lot of thinking about in what way performativity as a conduit for necessity and responses to situation of emergency situation in society, and a specific for what we experienced with the pandemic, for what we experienced with the social awakening of the summer of 2020. I started to do a performance, I always say, when I couldn't say what I wanted to say, through painting, sculpture, drawing, printmaking, photography. And I am thinking that performativity is definitely a language and a territory that it will become more and more present as we move forward in art, because it's in tune with necessity of our time, because it expresses of what I call transcends, the body in trance, the body in its own metamorphosis of expressing and retaining and processing what the time is, and sensing and let it out the experience of what is presented within itself. This is important. This is what our time is proposing to us, and we never have been more vulnerable and never have been more close by, even in the extent of distance, through this pandemic and in this social awakening. So I think that is behind the work.
Thank you so much. And on that note, we have come to the end of our program, although I'm sure we could gather here together and erupt into spontaneous gesture and movement. Thank you so much, Wendi and Magda, for being with us tonight. Thank you to our audience. And just a reminder that you can still watch the film for a very special window of time on the De Young Museum website. So please check that out. And thank you everyone for joining us. Take care of yourselves and each other, and good night.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye. Thank you,
Thank you.
Natasha.
Good night.
Bye.